The winter highway stretched endlessly as Emma Dalton sat in the passenger seat watching snow gather on the glass. She was tired emotionally and physically. After a long day visiting her daughter Laura, who had moved out of state for work, Emma had agreed to accompany her son-in-law, Michael Turner, on the trip because he didn't want to go alone. She had thought it would be simple, just a routine drive, some small talk, and then home. But the storm rolling in was stronger than expected. And the air inside the car carried a quiet tension that had been growing for months. Emma kept her eyes on the white road ahead, pretending everything felt normal. Michael was focused on driving, his hands steady on the wheel, his voice calm. "Road's getting rough," he murmured. "Might be smart to stop soon." Emma nodded. "Yes, we should." She didn't mention that her heart beat a little too fast whenever he spoke. She didn't mention the strange comfort she always felt around him. She didn't want these thoughts, didn't ask for them, and certainly didn't plan for them. Michael was her daughter's husband. But life had been stressful for everyone lately, and sometimes emotions got confused during hard times. Snow thickened quickly, turning the world into a blur. Street signs disappeared. The storm wrapped around them like a heavy blanket, pushing them to pull over. When Michael spotted a small, warm-looking hotel on the side of the road, he slowed the SUV and turned into the parking lot without hesitation. "We should stay here for the night," he said. "I don't want us risking the rest of the drive," Emma agreed. The cold air hit her face the moment she stepped out of the car. Snowflakes clung to her hair and her cheeks stung from the wind. Michael rushed to get their bags from the back seat, and for a brief moment, Emma felt grateful not for the situation, but for his steady presence. He always tried to do the right thing, even when exhausted. Inside the lobby, warm light replaced the biting cold. The receptionist looked apologetic as she checked the reservation system. Michael listened with a tired but calm expression, then walked back toward Emma. "Only one room left," he said quietly. "But it has 2 beds. I'm really sorry." "It's all right," Emma replied. She tried to sound relaxed even though her stomach tightened. She didn't want this to feel awkward. And she certainly didn't want to make him uncomfortable. They walked down the hallway together, their footsteps soft on the carpet. The hotel wasn't fancy, just clean, simple, quiet. When Michael opened the door to the room, warm air escaped into the hallway. 2 beds, 1 small table. A window covered in frost. A gentle lamp lit the space with a soft glow that made everything feel strangely intimate. Even though nothing inappropriate was happening, Emma placed her bag on one bed while Michael set his on the other. They both pretended the situation was normal. He turned on the heater, she checked her phone, and for a moment they didn't say anything at all. The silence wasn't heavy, but it wasn't empty either. It was full of things left unsaid: worries, stress, exhaustion, and the quiet bond of 2 people trying to support the same person they both loved. "Laura." Michael broke the quiet first. "Thank you for coming with me today," he said. His voice was warm, sincere. It meant a lot to her. And to me, Emma looked at him, surprised by the softness in his tone. "She's my daughter," she said gently. "And your family. Of course I would come." But the word family felt complicated. Not wrong, just layered with emotion neither of them planned to feel. They both changed into warm clothes and sat on their separate beds, eating the simple snacks they had brought. Outside, the storm grew louder, pushing hard against the window. Inside, their conversations slowly opened. They talked about Laura's job, how life had changed, and the pressure everyone felt. Emma noticed fatigue in Michael's eyes, something deeper than simple tiredness. She had seen it before: quiet worry, the kind people hide until it becomes heavy. As they talked, Emma felt something settle inside her. Not desire, not anything inappropriate, just a deep emotional warmth. A sense of understanding. A sense of connection that came from shared struggle and shared care for someone they both loved dearly. The wind howled louder, shaking the glass. Snow swallowed the world outside. And Emma realized they weren't just stopping because of the storm. Maybe life wanted them to pause, to breathe, to face the feelings neither of them fully understood. The night had just begun, and it already felt like something important had quietly shifted. The hotel room felt warmer than the world outside. But Emma could still feel the cold lingering on her cheeks from the snowstorm. Michael closed the door behind him, and the faint click of the lock made the room feel smaller, more personal. It wasn't awkward exactly, but it carried a tension neither of them could ignore. They were both grown adults, careful and respectful. Yet the night, the storm, and the quiet hours seemed to amplify every emotion. Michael placed their bags neatly by the door, his movements deliberate. "I'll make some tea," he offered, though the gesture seemed unnecessary. Emma smiled softly. "That sounds nice." She watched him move around the small kitchenette, feeling a strange comfort in his presence. He had always been thoughtful, attentive, careful not to cross any boundaries, yet his care now felt warmer, almost intimate, in a way that made her heart skip. She quickly reminded herself he was her daughter's husband. Everything must stay respectful. They settled at the small table with mugs of tea. Outside, the storm rattled the window panes, snow piling against the glass. Inside, the room was quiet except for their voices. Michael spoke first, sharing stories from their visit earlier. Things that made them laugh softly, breaking the tension without forcing it away. Emma felt herself relax slightly, the warmth of the tea mirroring the warmth she felt around him. "You've been doing a lot lately," she said gently. "I can see it in your eyes." Michael looked down at his cup, tracing the rim with his finger. "I guess I haven't been handling things as well as I thought," he admitted. "It's hard sometimes. I worry I'm not doing enough. Not being enough." Emma reached out instinctively, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You're doing more than you realize," she said softly. "You care, you try, and that counts for more than you know." Her words seemed to surprise him. He looked up, meeting her gaze with an honesty that was rare. For a moment, the storm outside felt irrelevant. The room felt suspended in time, a small bubble where worries could be shared and emotions could breathe. Neither of them said anything inappropriate. Yet the closeness was undeniable. They talked for hours about Laura, their family, and life's unexpected challenges. Emma shared small worries about her own health, her quiet fears about aging, and the loneliness she sometimes felt. Michael listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging. He offered comfort with soft words, and she felt a trust growing between them that went beyond mere courtesy. It was connection, real and emotional. At one point, Michael leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I sometimes feel lost," he admitted quietly, "like I'm walking through life without a map." Emma nodded, understanding more than she expected. "We all feel that way sometimes," she replied. "The difference is who we have beside us when we do. And right now, we have each other, even if it's just to talk." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, yet safe. They both felt the truth of it. Sometimes the simplest gestures, the softest conversations, carried more weight than any grand declaration. As the storm raged outside, Michael moved to the window to check the weather. The snow was still falling, but the worst seemed to be passing. Emma stood beside him, looking out at the whitened world. It was beautiful and isolating at the same time, and she realized how rare moments like this were. A chance to pause, to breathe, to share feelings without judgment. "You've changed things for me today," Michael said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't realize how much I needed. Just someone to listen." Emma smiled, her eyes warm. "Sometimes all we need is someone who sees us," she said. The words were simple, but they resonated. Both of them felt the weight of their emotions, yet knew the boundaries that must not be crossed. The night wasn't about desire, was about connection, understanding, and honesty. It was about two hearts that had been carrying burdens finally feeling the relief of shared trust. When the hour grew late, they prepared for bed, each returning to their respective side of the room. But neither moved with cold distance. There was an unspoken acknowledgement of the bond that had deepened that night. A bond rooted in respect, care, and quiet intimacy. The room, small and unassuming, had become a place of emotional refuge. Outside, the storm began to soften, but inside, Emma and Michael's hearts had changed in subtle ways. The night had passed with conversation, understanding, and warmth. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Everything had been honest. And yet, both knew that the emotional closeness of this night would linger far longer than the snowstorm outside. As Emma drifted into a restless sleep, she realized that some connections were reaffirmed not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in the quiet honesty of two people willing to listen and care. And that realization stayed with her, quietly shaping the way she felt about the world, her family, and Michael, in ways she couldn't yet fully explain. The night outside was cold and harsh, but inside, warmth remained an emotional bond that neither could ignore. Yet both respected. The night had grown deeper, and the storm outside had slowed to a soft flurry against the window. Emma couldn't sleep. Her mind kept returning to the conversations of the evening. The soft laughter, the shared worries, and the gentle honesty that had made her heart feel unexpectedly heavy. She got up quietly, wrapped her sweater around her shoulders, and moved toward the window where Michael sat on the edge of his bed, staring out into the snowy night. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. He shook his head, eyes not leaving the scene outside. "Just thinking," he murmured. Emma joined him, leaning slightly against the windowsill. The lamp cast a warm glow over the small space, making the room feel intimate without being inappropriate. For a few moments, they simply watched the world beyond the glass, listening to the soft rhythm of snow falling. The silence was comforting, not awkward. It was the kind of quiet that allowed people to share more than words sometimes could. Michael spoke first, his voice low and careful. "I feel like I don't always handle things the right way. Like I'm failing my family, failing Laura." Emma turned to him, her expression gentle but steady. "You're not failing. You care, you try, and that matters more than perfection. Everyone feels that way sometimes." He gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. "I guess it's easier to admit that to you than anyone else." She nodded, understanding. It was true he trusted her. He trusted her enough to share worries that were meant to stay hidden. And in that trust, a bond had quietly formed between them. A bond of respect, care, and honesty. Emma felt her chest tighten not with desire, but with the emotional weight of being seen in a moment no one else knew. They talked for a while longer, their voices low, careful, and warm. Michael shared memories from his childhood, the small regrets he carried, and the fears he had about the future. Emma shared her own quiet worries, the loneliness she sometimes felt, the ways she worried about her daughter, and the weight of being a mother who wanted to protect everyone she loved. Each confession was gentle, heartfelt, and safe. Neither word carried anything inappropriate, but every sentence drew them closer emotionally. At one point, Michael admitted softly, "Sometimes I feel like I'm walking through life blind, not knowing if I'm doing the right thing." Emma placed a hand on the windowsill, just beside his, close enough to share warmth without crossing boundaries. "Life doesn't come with maps. We all stumble. What matters is having someone to lean on when we do. That's what I'm here for tonight, and I know you'd do the same for me." He turned to her, eyes searching hers, and for a moment the emotional intensity hung in the room. It wasn't romantic in a forbidden way, it was the deep, human kind of connection that comes from honesty, understanding, and trust. Both of them were aware of the boundary they couldn't cross, but that awareness didn't lessen the warmth between them. It made it stronger, more meaningful. They shared memories of Laura, laughed softly at small stories, and even sat in quiet reflection. Each lost in thought, but not alone. Michael's presence felt comforting to Emma in a way she hadn't expected. She realized that emotional intimacy didn't have to involve anything physical to be powerful. It was the feeling of being understood, of being truly seen. That stayed with her heart. The hours passed quickly, and the night outside deepened, but inside the room was calm and safe. Emma finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "Whatever we're feeling, it's fine. Just talking like this, being honest, it's important, and it doesn't change who we are. It doesn't change boundaries. It only makes our connections stronger in the right ways." Michael nodded, relief and gratitude in his eyes. "I respect that, and I respect you. That's all I need to know." They returned to their separate beds, but the room felt lighter, warmer. Both of them were aware of the subtle bond that had grown during the night. The emotional closeness that came from mutual trust and shared vulnerability. It wasn't dangerous or inappropriate, but it was significant. It was the kind of connection that quietly reshapes relationships, making people care more deeply, understand more fully, and act with more thoughtfulness. As Emma lay down, she realized the night had been about more than the storm outside or the hotel room itself. It had been about emotional honesty, respect, and the quiet acknowledgement that two people could support each other without crossing lines. The feelings were intense, real, and meaningful, but also safe, controlled, and respectful. Michael's steady breathing from the other side of the room was a reminder that they had maintained boundaries. They had shared, comforted, and connected, and, in that, they had found a kind of peace that only honesty can bring. The storm may have softened, but the warmth inside the room lingered, a subtle, emotional bond neither of them would forget. It was quiet, heartfelt, and powerful, shaping the way both would face the morning, the journey ahead, and the challenges yet to come. Morning light streamed through the hotel window, soft and pale, filling the room with a gentle warmth. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside quiet and still, coated in a blanket of sparkling snow. Emma stirred under her blanket, stretching slowly, and noticed Michael already awake, quietly packing his bag on the edge of his bed. The events of the previous night felt heavy, yet peaceful. Nothing inappropriate had happened, but the bond they had built during the storm lingered. A quiet understanding that neither would forget. Emma got up, wrapping her sweater tightly around her shoulders. She approached Michael, who paused mid-fold to look at her, his expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "About last night," she began, her voice soft but steady, careful not to give the wrong impression. Michael shook his head slightly, smiling faintly. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "I never intended." Emma held up a hand, interrupting him gently. "You didn't. Nothing inappropriate happened. We were honest, and that honesty mattered. That's all." Relief washed over him, visible in the relaxation of his shoulders. There was a moment of quiet as they both absorbed the significance of last night, the emotions shared, the truths revealed, and the subtle connection that had grown between them. It wasn't dangerous, but it was meaningful. She took a step closer, her voice warm but firm. "You are a good man, Michael. You love Laura. That is what matters most. Whatever we felt, it was just two tired hearts finding comfort, nothing more. And that's okay. It was safe, honest, and real. But it ends here." Michael nodded, eyes soft, understanding her completely. "I respect that, Emma. I respect you. And I know boundaries are important. I would never forget that." Emma smiled, feeling the lingering warmth of both the tea from last night and the emotional closeness they had shared. She realized that some connections are powerful precisely because they remain safe, honest, and respectful. They didn't cross lines, yet their hearts had acknowledged one another. That subtle shift was enough to change them, not in a dangerous way, but in a way that deepened their trust, understanding, and mutual care. They checked out of the hotel quickly, the winter sun glinting off the snow as they stepped outside. Michael carried the bags while Emma adjusted her coat. The air was crisp and cold, but it felt refreshing after the tension and intimacy of the night. As they walked to the car, they exchanged soft smiles, small, honest gestures that spoke more than words could convey. Once inside the SUV, Michael started the engine, and the world outside became a blur of white and blue. "Thank you, Emma," he said quietly, "for last night, for listening, for understanding, for being there. I don't think I could have handled the storm alone." Emma glanced at him, her heart warm. "Sometimes," she replied gently, "the most important moments aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones where we pause, talk, and just listen. That's what makes us stronger. That's what makes us care more deeply." He nodded, eyes on the road, but she could see the subtle relief in his expression. Both of them knew that whatever they had shared was meaningful but remained safe, respectful, and entirely appropriate. It had not crossed any line, yet it had reminded them of the power of trust and emotional intimacy. The drive continued, the snow now melting on the edges of the road, leaving streaks of white against the asphalt. Conversation flowed easily between them, lighter now, focused on Laura, family matters, and plans for the coming weeks. The weight of the storm and the night's emotions had shifted into a calm, awareness, a shared understanding that neither would forget. Emma felt a quiet satisfaction in her heart. The night had tested emotions, boundaries, and restraint, but it had ended with clarity and peace. Michael, too, seemed lighter. His usual sense of responsibility balanced with the comfort of knowing he was understood and respected. Together they had faced the storm, shared their thoughts, and preserved the integrity of their family bond as the SUV moved along the highway. The world brightened with winter sunlight. Emma looked out the window at the glistening landscape and realized something profound. Sometimes, meaningful connections are built not through passion or drama, but through honesty, empathy, and respect. That quiet emotional bond could last longer than any fleeting thrill. It was deeper, stronger, and entirely safe. Michael glanced at her briefly, a small smile on his face. "We'll be okay," he said softly. Emma nodded, returning the smile. "Yes, we will. And we'll carry what we learned from last night, respect, care, and honest forward with us."